Oh, if I forget, just, hopefully I don't forget. It sounds different when I speak into it, so come on, get some pizza, have a seat. If you have to leave midway, that's okay. You'll also have a chance at 2 slideshows, so you can always get up and get pizza. You might be on the camera, but. Hi, welcome to the Lawrence Tech Library. We have pizza and soda for you while you're here for this presentation about using the library. Everybody has a bookmark telling you some things with some information about the library. Obviously, you know how to get here since you're here, except for the people who are watching on the YouTube. I am going to show some instructions about how to find the library. So you can find our website, library@ltu.edu, and we have a 24/7 chat. You can email all of your librarians. That library at LTU goes to more than one librarian, so you get more librarian brains working for you. These are our current hours. We're open until 11 p.m. Monday through Thursday and 9 to 6 on Friday, noon to 5 Saturday and Sunday. So I mentioned in-person visit, which many of you are here in person. We are located in building number 5, which is 2 buildings merged together. So we are right below the atrium on the M side of the building that has floors 1 through 3. So you can see outside the building we have a few signs directing you to know that the library is in this building. And then just follow the blue chevrons from the atrium down to level 1. And there is the entrance to the library. When you come in, you will see our wonderful student assistants at the circulation desk, there to help you check things out, get course reserves, and help you, assist you with printing and scanning, which is free. If you need copies, they can help you with that also. We have study rooms in the library that you can leave your ID at the desk with our student assistants and check out a study room for 2 hours. And at the reference desk, we are there to help you with your research assignments, finding journal articles, ebooks, print books, streaming video, and citing your sources. For a virtual visit to the library, from the my.ltu.edu page, just click on that stack of books. If you're at the ltu.edu page, there are a few places where you can choose library. Here's one of them. If you're off campus and you want to reach and read our electronic resources, you will be prompted to log into Canvas if you haven't already started in Canvas. So just log in. It says your LTU network computer credentials. That means Canvas. Just put that in. And an important thing, if you want to open any of our electronic resources, we use Easy Proxy, and it doesn't get along with the VPN. So turn the VPN Global Protect off in order to see our electronic resources. So here is our library homepage. I mentioned the 24/7 help online. There are 2 places, at least on the homepage, where you can get right to that button there, and you'll put in your name, your LTU email address, please, and your question, and you will chat with a librarian at 3 a.m., at 2 in the afternoon. 2 in the afternoon, today you might get me, because that's my chat shift. Other days and times, there'll be librarians from around the world who will use their professional librarian skills to help answer your question. If they don't fully answer it or you need more help from one of us, they will create a ticket for follow-up for us. They can also send you a transcript of your conversation, which might have searching tips or links to things to help you. So you can always request that transcript if they don't offer it. When you're trying to do research in the library, we're going to talk a little bit about identifying your topic and give you some tips on that. So if you have an assignment, you can talk with your professor, of course, about what your assignment requirements are and maybe some ideas of what you would like to research. You can also chat with librarians or friends. When you're talking with people, sometimes you come up with better terms or alternative terms that maybe you're introduced to the topic and you're not sure what all the terms are. Librarians are professionals in synonyms. So we can figure out, like if you were doing the topic of global warming and you want to do historic research, maybe you're thinking, well, I'm not finding anything on global warming in the 1970s. Oh, sorry, I just messed that all up, didn't I? Global warming is the 1970s term. Now, what do we say? Anybody shout out what term we use more currently for this? Climate change. So climate change would be the more current term, so you may find more things now in current information with climate change. Also, you might think, well, that's really broad. I got a whole lot of results. How do I narrow that down? Maybe you're going to look at the rising sea levels or the melting polar ice caps, things like that that librarians can help you with, even if we make a mistake along the way. Okay, so we're human beings too. So another thing you could do is you could look at Wikipedia to get some general background information. How many people do that? Usually your professor will tell you you need peer-reviewed scholarly resources. But if you're trying to think of terms and brainstorm things, maybe get some names to use when you're searching, Wikipedia is a place that you could start. You could even ask GPT about that. But you do need to know that it was trained off of 2021 data, so if you're looking for more recent things, it might not be able to help you. So when you're looking at Wikipedia, they say on their page, we do not expect you to trust us. So one thing to know about that is anyone can go in there and change things. And several years ago, a 17-year-old student invented a nickname for the coati that was, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, Brazilian aardvark. And that information stayed up there for 6 years, and it was cited by other resources, and it was false. So you really want to verify your resources. So I'm going to tell you a little more about using the resources from your library, because those are already at a certain level of expertise and authoritativeness. So when you're searching, also, you might begin with something broad, like the term cats. And if you put cats into either Google or our library database and search engine that we have, you'll get all sorts of cats. You get cats that are Maine Coon cats and tuxedo cats, and you get cats that are playing and cats that are sleeping. You get a whole clouder of cats. But if you want to narrow that down to something more specific, you can put in more terms. See, this was a single term put in, and you got a lot of information, maybe overwhelming. But if you put in more terms, like Scottish fold, munchkin, and kitten, you get this cute little kitten. And then you can maybe have your specialized information about that cute little kitten there. Another way to think of narrowing your research is if you put in a single term, like dinosaur, you'll get that whole dinosaur, right? But if you want to narrow down to something specific, you want to search in that vertebrae of the tail. So putting more words in will get you more narrow. And that I'm going to give you a few more tips on doing that too. So first, we're going to show you using the TechCat for searching. So TechCat is, you saw that on that first slide, the main search page. And it not only shows you our physical items that we have here, it's connected to about 100 of our databases, which the databases have electronic journal articles, ebooks, streaming video. You can see how you can choose, it's defaulted to everything over there. So you could put a term in there. We put the term cats in and got some results. We focused in on this ebook right here. I want to mention, see where it says view ebook? Remember I mentioned if you're off campus, you can see all this on or off campus. If you're on campus, you can click on that ebook, it'll go right to it. If you're off campus, this is where you'll see that prompt to log into Canvas, and then you can get to the electronic information. We can narrow our search with our filters over here, just like when you're shopping. You're shopping for information here. So you can use the peer-reviewed button. Many of you have probably been told to use peer-reviewed resources. Those are looked over and submitted to peer-reviewed journals where people in that profession will look over your methodology and make sure that the authors have followed a certain level of rigor in that field. And those are going to be the scholarly peer-reviewed resources. We could choose article or we could choose book. My next slide, I believe, is where we narrowed it to an article to show you some examples there. So this one is an article. You see this little icon here shows article. It says peer-reviewed because we put that filter on. This is the title of our article. And here's where we find some subject headings. Remember we were talking about brainstorming terms. So this happens to be about skin disease in dogs and cats, but maybe we want to focus on just the cats. We could do cat diseases surgery. This is a hot button. You can just click on it. It'll bring you to more resources that specialize in that field. You can choose terms out of here and use them other places, or put them in combined with other terms, or you can just click on them as subject headings. Now, you don't see the view full text over there because I'm on a different screen, but it's over here. You still have the option to read this whole article. But if we didn't own the article, you could click here, request the item via interlibrary loan. And that will have the top portion all filled out with the bibliographic information telling what the source is. But you have to scroll to the bottom, put in your LTU email address, your name, and where it says patron ID, use your banner ID number. And then hit the submit button. You might have to scroll down a little farther for that. So just remember to do that. We're so used to putting things in carts and they're already there. You just one click. This, you have to fill out a form. And you'll get that requested. That will go to us, and we will either find it in one of our other databases or we'll request it from another library. Usually electronic articles come pretty quickly. We tell you about 3 days, but it could be a matter of hours before you get those results. So this one, if I click on View Full Text, it brings me to this page. This one comes out of Wiley Online Library, and you can see it's got Lawrence Tech up here. This is one that you subscribe to with your tuition dollars. This is how we have access to this resource. And right here, we can click on the PDF and open the PDF and download it and save it if this article looks interesting. If you're not sure if you want to save it or not, look at the abstract. This abstract tells you a little bit about it. You can see what the article is. If it looks interesting to you, if it doesn't, don't save it. Most of our databases have recommended, or I forget what they also say. I think of it as people who bought this also bought that. So they have recommended other articles that you might want to look at. Remember, you're trying to get into a new area that maybe you don't know all the search terms yet, but you can look at other articles. Just be sure those other articles also fall within the date range if your professor has said, oh, the last 2 years, the last 10 years, whatever range they gave you. Let's see. And here you can see the information about the authors and the date of the article and the link for it, the DOI. And that one we have full access to with that little unlock over here. If you ever find an article and it has a lock, what you can do is you can email us at library@ltu.edu and say, hey, can you get this article for me? And we can do that for you. Either we will find it in one of our resources or we will request it from another one. We usually have good results and are able to get them for you. Let's see. So don't pay for any if you hit a paywall. Ask us. That's why you're here as a student. That's one of the perks that you get is access to all these resources. If you prefer to use Google Scholar, be sure that when you're on the Google Scholar page that you click on the hamburger menu, go down to Settings. The My Library is something else. Go to Settings. Then in there, choose Library Links and make sure that all of these are chosen. Because that will do, what that will do, it will use the Google search engine to find resources that you have access to through our library. It will link to what our full text are. And again, if for some reason it doesn't open to one of our articles or it doesn't look like we own it, you can copy that bibliographic information and send it to us and ask us if we can get it for you. So the end of this part of the presentation, right here again, you can reach us by calling us, come on in, email us, or chat with us 24/7. If you want to take a chance to get some refreshments, go ahead and do that. And I'm going to open my other slideshow. This is actually 2 parts that we did in different classes. Let me get my other one open. Does anybody have any questions? If you think of questions later, you can always email. We're here. That's what our job is, to answer questions, right? Oh, you know what I didn't even mention? I probably didn't even introduce myself. I'm Suzanne Szymanski-Gross, and I am one of your librarians. And Cynthia Simpson is the executive director of the library, and she also put together this presentation and has presented it to classes. So here we go. We're going to review some things I just said earlier, if anybody wants to answer. Can you chat with a librarian? Yes, with that 24/7 chat button. And obviously, you know, we're located in the lowest level or the basement of the Buell building. Come on down. We do have some sunlight. We're right over here with our atrium lighting. How do you access the digital branch when you're not on campus? The main thing I think I mentioned a couple times, please log into Canvas and have the VPN off. Again, if you run into any trouble, email us and we can help you troubleshoot. Name one way to identify a topic to investigate. We mentioned that you could talk with your instructor, your classmates, you could talk with us. We love hearing about what you're researching and helping you find the information. And should your research results look like a dinosaur's tail or cats? Well, it depends on how much you want to dig through, right? I'm going to show you in this presentation how to get to that dinosaur's tail. Get them really refined. And I just mentioned about Google Scholar. So if you have any trouble with getting those Google Scholar settings, I think when you're on campus, I know I've seen it default to that, but I don't know if you're at home. Anybody watching on YouTube can check that with their computer to see if those are chosen. So how is the library like Amazon? You can come here and do your one-stop shopping. You can get all your information needs filled here. We can find the recommended journals, articles, books, organizations, and websites. We have research guides that are created by librarians. They're on that home page on the left-hand side from the earlier show. Remember over here there was the 24/7 Ask a Librarian. There are also the research guides there. That's where they would click on that and it opens this page. And here we have them grouped by subject. We do research guides on lots of things. Some are on fields of study, while others might be on things like career resources, citing your sources. That's under the how-to resources, how to cite your sources. So we have some handy tools there for you. We're going to just take a quick look at what the engineering library guide looks like, the research guide. Right here you can see we have different engineering fields in the tabs across the top. And then we direct you, I mentioned how that TechCat Plus has the physical stuff in our library, but also connects to many databases. It connects to this database, and this database, and this database. Anyone with a little beach ball looking thing here, or volleyball, I'm not sure what it is. It's the emblem for WorldCat. See, we have the IEEE library. Maybe if you're specializing in electrical and electronics engineering, that might be something you want to look in. And actually, while I'm mentioning that, if you want to learn more about IEEE, we have a presentation coming up on Thursday, October 12th, from 11 to noon up in the atrium. We'll have a representative from IEEE who's going to have an awareness table where they have some giveaways and some information about IEEE, and then he's going to come down here and give a presentation about publishing with IEEE and using the IEEE Explore digital library. So anyway, this guides you to a few things there about using some of those, directs you to some of those resources which you might not know are available. Now I'm going to tell you about a little bit about evaluating your resources. So one thing to consider is the publication cycle. So you might be, I don't know if anyone's aware, there was an oil spill in August in Manistee. And if you were going to go and look for research on that, you might get an assignment and say, well, I've got to go find some scholarly resources. I'm going to look for some peer-reviewed articles. And you'd come to the library, but then didn't find anything. Well, that happened in August of 2023, and right now, this is September. It's because it was really recent. And when current events happen that same day, you'll hear them on the radio, see them on the web, TV, on blogs, other social media. You'll see it there. A few days later, the day after, it'll make it to print and online newspapers, or maybe later in that evening, hours after, weeks after, it'll hit magazine articles. And it takes months to get in the scholarly journals because they're doing all that research on it, and it takes a while to get them all that through that publication process. And then years after, things end up in the books. So that's something to consider when you're trying to figure out where you're going to look for your information. So I mentioned magazines and journals. So scholarly, they're written by experts in the field and then examined and reviewed by experts in the field. Lots of times they'll send them back to the writers. They have to do revisions, and then they eventually get published. They include that abstract telling a brief bit about it, a short summary, which makes it really quick to decide, are you going to read that 20-page journal article? You read the abstract and it will let you know if it's got more that you want to read about. They'll also list all their citations of the resources they use. They typically have charts and graphs, tables of data. They'll use specialized terminology. In the more popular magazine type resources, they're brief overview. They're written for the general public, not for people who are in that field or trying to do deep research in that field. They usually do not have a bibliography and list of citations at the end. They might list some people they've interviewed, though, so they can be useful to then look up, have those people done further research on it. So if we just want to judge them by their cover, we can look over here. We have a bunch of our journals. Most of those are, some of those are scholarly and some are general interest. But up here, if you're looking at this cover, what do you think that's going to have? Or if any of you are familiar with Time magazine, that one's more for a general audience and is a general magazine. Academic Pediatrics, looking at this, it's actually one you can kind of judge by the cover because it gives all this information about what's in the issue. They're very detailed and in-depth titles. And it actually says it's the official journal of the Academic Pediatric Association. So probably is a scholarly journal, but we also have resources we can use to check to make sure that is. So just ask us if you're not sure. And this one is general and making you hungry, so please have more pizza. So when you're looking at a specific article, there are a couple of tips that you can use, acronyms to remember how to filter through the article to evaluate it. So SIFT is one where it says stop, then you're going to investigate the source. A lot of the scholarly articles, I forgot to mention on the previous slide, it will either tell right up in the top where it lists the authors, or it will have footnotes that you can click on, scroll down to, telling are they affiliated with a certain laboratory or university or company, tells what their area of expertise is and what their level of education is. Can you find better coverage for the F? Find better coverage, maybe look more in depth, see if there's other coverage that verifies it, backs it up, has some of the same information, or more broad or more in-depth information, either of those two. And can you trace those claims for the T? Can you trace the quotes and find the original? Does it have the bibliographic resources listed in there that you can go back and look at those and verify that they're actually supporting what that article has in it? Another one you could use is cables. What is the currency of the article? How does it pertain to the timeline that you're using? Are you doing research on something that happened recently, or are you looking at an historic event like the War of 1812? Do you want to find primary resources from people who were there at that time that was written, reports written from then? The authority, who wrote them? Again, that's kind of like investigating the source. What authority do the authors have? The bias, so that can matter too, depending on what their affiliation is. Are they with a laboratory? Maybe it's an article about a medication. Do they work for a pharmacy? And the bias isn't necessarily bad, it's just good to know what it is. So if you have an article maybe by that manufacturer, and then you have an article about maybe people who are providing or taking that medication or using that product, depending on what it is. So you can look and see, do you have neutral resources? Do you have bias one way or the other? Let's see. Is it for the level? Is it appropriate for your scholarly work? Remember we mentioned using that peer-reviewed filter. Typically when you're looking in one of our databases, those are at your scholarly level. However, some of them can be a little bit more general. There's Academic Search Complete, which I will show you, which can some of those resources can be used by high school students. So you might want to evaluate, make sure your article is on the level that you need. What is the end goal? Is this article trying to persuade somebody something? Are they trying to persuade a person to use a product or think a certain way? A lot of people have written argumentative papers, pros and cons, what is in that paper? And can the information be supported, like tracing the original claims? Well, how do they support it? Do they explain their methodology? Can you support it with other articles and other research? So when you're trying to find information, you can think of it as, is it good? Is it fast? Is it cheap? Often, if it's fast, it doesn't fall into the good or cheap. If it's cheap, it doesn't fall into the good or fast, except it does have some overlap here or there. So you have a choice if you want fast or cheap, fast and cheap, good and fast, or good and cheap. So at the library, what we're explaining to you is we're giving you good information. It's going to take you a little while to learn how to use it, but then hopefully it will become faster for you as you use it. When you're using these resources, they get easier to use the more you use them. And again, you could hit that paywall, but through us, you should not hit a paywall. If you do, you're going to give us a request through interlibrary loan or email us. If you'd like to use ChatGPT or AI, we want you to know a few things about how that works. So ChatGPT uses a prompt with a question. You put your question in there, and then it will use the deep learning to generate a response. And then it identifies keywords, and it will predict. And then you can give it more prompts to narrow that down. However, we've done a few things with ChatGPT, and for your classes, you need to go by what your instructor's telling you about how much you can use it. We mentioned you might be able to generate some ideas about how to write your paper or how to dive into the research. But it doesn't just get things wrong at times. It can fabricate information, names and dates, medical explanations, the plots of books, internet addresses, and even historical events that never happened. This comes from an article in the New York Times from May 1st of 2023 about AI chatbots hallucination. We have had questions about hallucinations here, where professors have given us citations that have been submitted to them, and they don't lead to the article that's listed. They might be a real author, they might be a real journal title, but they're not altogether an actual article combined. So we caution you on using that to generate your paper. Just remember the data sets were ended in 2021, so it wouldn't have things about the current Ukraine war. I just mentioned about the hallucinations for the citations. And it can misunderstand your keywords. Let's see, I mentioned about the cutoff of September 2021. So I'm going to tell you about misunderstanding keywords. Somebody fed to an AI image generator about salmon swimming in the river. And this is what they got. So those are salmon, and they're in the river, but that's not how you typically see a salmon in the river. Let's see. So there's another, using Microsoft Bing, somebody generated this book review about, not a book review, an explanation about the mention of artificial intelligence, and it mentions a book review and gives the date of it, gives the title of the book, the author of the book, and the reviewer, and then tells you all the things that were wrong with what was generated there. So you need to be cautious about that. Don't just believe it. You have to verify it. If you don't know the answer to a question already, I would not give the question to one of these systems, said this professor and researcher of artificial intelligence at Arizona State University. So I mentioned I was going to get into Academic Search Complete, which is one of our databases. And I mentioned it does have some general information in it. So if you're using Academic Search Complete, choose your peer-reviewed button here, and that's going to bring you to the scholarly resources. If you click on this button here with references available, that will help you to generate resources, a list of resources that have their own citations. Remember I mentioned earlier about verifying the research and seeing how they support it. So they would give their list of resources. So if it's going to have a list of references available, it's generally going to be a peer-reviewed article that you can use for your research. What happens with the peer-reviewed journals is the filter that we use will go to peer-reviewed journals, and those journals may have book reviews in them. They may also have opinions or editorials, but those will not necessarily have references. So that helps you eliminate some of those articles that aren't necessarily peer-reviewed that are in a peer-reviewed journal, if hopefully that makes sense. Sometimes you get a few things that sneak through. I like to say, like when you're shopping online and you want to do hiking boots and then you see a pair of sandals or high heels that just happen to be made by that normally hiking boot company. So things can sneak through, so you have to use your own brain and either cables or SIFT or another way to analyze that resource. So if you want to type into the top of the search box here, you can start to type CARD for cardiac, cardiovascular. It will start to autofill for you and complete, which is really nice because it might come up with something that's interesting that you hadn't thought of, or if you're not a very good speller, it might finish the spelling for you. And so if we choose here to go with cardiovascular disease as a general search in that field, we get over 350,000 results. And who has time to go through that many results? That's a lot to read through and sift through. So let's narrow it down using some other techniques. One is if you put quotation marks around it, which is also when you search on the web, that works too, to get those two words next to each other. And you can also say you want to use it as a subject term. Do you remember that slide from the other one where I had the diseases in cats, those blue words? Those are keywords that are assigned by either librarians or by the authors of the articles, and they end up in subject terms. So then that's going to help you narrow in on articles that are fully about that topic that you're looking at. And you get 25,000 results, which is still a lot, but down quite a bit from 350,000. So we can narrow it even more if we want to use a geographic term, say the United States. We could put that peer-reviewed filter, references available. We could say, oh, we want it only from 2018 on. And then you get down to 20 results. And how about searching through 20? You're looking at those abstracts. You can just pull up the abstract. If you click on here, it'll show you the abstract. And then you can decide, oh, do I want that article? Oh, that looks good. I'm going to download that PDF. This one happens to have HTML. It's a good thing to note that if you have a choice, go with the PDF because that will have all the graphs and tables. Sometimes those are eliminated from the HTML. If it only has HTML and that's all you find and you want that article, email us and say, hey, I only found HTML. Can you find the one with the graphs and the charts? I need a PDF, and we'll see if we can find that for you. It should be somewhere. So remember to log in with your Canvas credentials to get to that full text. Do we have any questions? That's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your time. Please have some more pizza and soda. Oh, wait a minute. I said it was the end, but I forgot all the rest of my commercials. We are going to have a presentation on some Mondays, a few presentations. Material Connection on October 23rd. CINAL, which is a nursing and allied health resource, on November 6th. Going Global, which is a really good resource for job research all around the world, including the United States. It has lots of good tips for making your resume and cover letter and things about different cities to work in, and also links to job advertisements. We have on Monday nights, we're actually moving here this Monday night for it from 7 to 8:30 p.m. The game plan to assist the football team. Anybody else can come and we'll help you. We'll be over here helping use the library resources. It's not just us. It'll be somebody from the Writing Center and tutors from the AAC to help with all of your needs for studying and getting your assignments done. We have some more success seminars coming up on some Wednesdays. October 11th is the next one. I mentioned the IEEE thing on the 12th. And we do have dogs coming to this very space. The next time the dogs come is October 13th. So we have programs 3 days in a row in the library. The 11th we'll have pizza. The 12th we'll have awareness table giveaways for IEEE, and then petting dogs right here. Just come on in for a study pause with therapy dogs. Hope to see you there.